there's a lot of aspects to it. When you're on a committee, of course, you have to be collegial and considerate of other people's opinions. When you want something to happen, you have to get at least two other of your colleagues on a 5-person committee to see it your way. So there's challenges there, but there's also, public-facing challenges. People get excited about and upset about things. And the funny thing is that when people come to a town committee meeting, because almost no one goes to a town committee meeting unless something's going on that affects them. So they show up, they're agitated, usually, because something's going on they're not happy with. They're not used to the process, so they can be a little put off by the formality of a township committee meeting or any public.
Hey, everybody, you are not going to want to miss today's episode of Going Beyond the Deal. Today, I have my friend, Mr. John Carpenter, National Practice Partner at the ERA Group. We're going to talk about his journey from pilot to politician and now National Practice Partner of the ERA Group, where he is helping many different companies across the country save money on a lot of their expenses. And frankly, if you're not checking the pulse on your expenses on a regular basis, you're frankly just leaving money on the table. So really exciting episode. John is going to provide a ton of value, and I'm glad to have you here. Thanks again. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Going Beyond the Deal podcast. Today, I have my friend, Mr. John Carpenter, National Practice Leader at the ERA Group. John, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Michael, and it's a pleasure to be here with you this morning.
John, I have to first say thank you. You've been such an advocate and, you said a lot of very kind words about the podcast. Really, really appreciate your support and excited to have you on because I really feel like as you and I have, gotten to know each other over the past couple of years, it's been, your practice is something that's really, really valuable to clients. I think just as somebody to let's just take a check on things. Let's just make sure that we're paying the right thing, paying the right amount for the right things. And it keeps everybody honest. So I certainly appreciate it. But just to give everybody just a, quick background, John and I met through our involvement in the Association for Corporate Growth. We both serve on the advisory board. We've worked on you don't serve on the advisory board. Maybe I'm wrong with that.
No, I'm on the advisory board. Yes.
I was going to say, you are on the advisory board. Yeah. So we serve on the advisory board together. We've gotten to work together on the Corporate Growth Awards. And that's the one thing that I always say is when you get involved in any of these organizations, especially one like ACG, this is where you get the most out of it. You get involved with the organization, you roll your sleeves up, you put on some really cool events and stuff. But that's when you and I really got to know each other more about what we're doing, what makes us tick. And then from there, we built a friendship from it. So happy to have you on the show.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. It's been great. And certainly I admire what you're doing, with DBD and your leadership at ACG. And your podcast is on my must watch list. So
I appreciate
I have to find out for myself.
We need more. We need thousands of more John Carpenter, so you can advocate for me in the world. But so John, the one thing about you that's always been very interesting to me is we've come to kind of find out that we've had some mutual friends over the years, just that we didn't know, Mike Loftus and things like that, Matt Mensch. You've had a really interesting kind of career to get you to this point. So can you kind of talk about like where it started and then, how we got to this point now? But, where did you start? Where'd you go to college? And then where did it go from there?
Sure. It's kind of a saga.
Like
a lot of kids in high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I followed a bunch of my friends who were going out to Wittenberg University in Springfield, Ohio. I knew some people who were there, and a couple of my classmates were going. And so it was a good decision because I think college was good. And kind of interesting thing happened. My first semester, I got assigned a course. It was something like Fortran programming. I'd never even heard of Fortran. It was a computer language, software language. Okay. So, I took the course. I loved it. I really thought I had a knack for it and I had an interest in it. I subsequently transferred to Union College in Schenectady, New York, upstate New York, because Union offered a degree in computer science. And so that's what I decided I would major in. I worked my way through college, had some great experiences there. Uh, First job out of college, I worked at AT&T as a software developer. Back
In
then,
New
we were called
Jersey.
in New Jersey, in Piscataway, New Jersey.
I was going to say, like, I feel like there's a certain generation that like everybody at least worked for AT&T for like a year or so. I feel like that at least.
Oh yeah, my mom and dad worked there. My aunt and uncle worked there. They all met through their time at New Jersey Bell, which was
Yep.
one of the operating telephone companies. Yeah, and AT&T leased every building on the 287 corridor from Piscataway to Parsippany. For anyone in the area that knows that, they just owned all the office space and everyone worked for them. It was amazing. So,
yeah.
I started working at AT&T. The work wasn't that great for me. It wasn't really software development like it is today. I always had an interest in aviation. One day I saw an airplane literally fly overhead my car kind of low, and literally it was like a light bulb going off. So I at college for a little while, I had a few dollars, so I decided to take flying lessons. One thing led to another, became a flight instructor. Then I started flying along, got on some got in the charter business. Then I ended up working for a couple of companies as a corporate pilot. It was really fascinating. Had some great experiences, learned a lot. But it was a tough way to raise a family. I had 2 kids at the time, another one on the way. Economy was sideways back then, and it was just tough to stay in the business. So I went back to IT, and I worked in IT for a number of years until something ticked me off in my local government, and I decided to get involved. And it's one of those things. I always call it a vortex. First you're moving slowly around the perimeter, and the next thing you know, you're at the center. Next thing you know, I was running for office. I got elected, and I served 3-year terms. So I served 15 years on my township committee, and 3 of those years I served as mayor.
Wow. What town was that now, John?
It was Berners Township. Around here, it's known as Basking Ridge, New Jersey.
Beautiful,
but the
beautiful
legal name is Berners Township. And
nice.
Along the way, I lost my interest in IT. I found that as I was working more and more with people and solving bigger problems, I knew I had to get out of IT. So I networked my way over to a sales position. It was an interesting position at a large consumer packaged goods company where we sold over-the-counter healthcare products to Walmart, Target, Walgreens. And that was a whole interesting experience. I developed national strategy for several of those categories, and we presented it to the buyers at these large companies. That was just an amazing, amazing thing. I did that for a long time. And then, got out of that and was looking for another thing to do. Took a little time. And with the help of my wife, who was doing a lot of research, we found Era Group. And here we are.
Nice. So if you don't mind,
things along the way.
Yeah, no, I love it. So I guess if you don't mind me just going back real quick. So I don't know, what is the schedule of a pilot? I mean, is it like a lot of nights and weekends, which would make it not conducive to family life? I have no idea. So I just think it's interesting.
Well, it varies a lot. You hear about airline pilots that fly 3 trips to Europe or Asia a month.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks that's great and they make a lot of money. But, at the lower levels where I was at the time in corporate aviation, there's still a lot of variation. If it's a solid corporate flight department, they'll have enough pilots that you can get a schedule, dependable schedule, so you can have home life and know when you're flying. But where I was the only pilot.
Okay.
So when the owner of the company wanted to fly, we flew.
Got it.
And it was, I would get a call, at 8:00 at night. I could tell you some stories that would make your hair stand up, but I get a call at 8:00 at night, really bad weather. Owner wants to fly up to, somewhere up into England from Teterboro. And I just packed my bag and drove to the airport. We arrived at our destination about 1:00 in the morning. Next day, we're 8:00 going out somewhere in Western Mass. And I would go out and wouldn't always know when I was coming home. So I always tried to bring 3 days worth of clothing with me, because I figured in 3 days I could always get some laundry done.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
A lot of variation, and with single pilot, a lot of pressure.
No, totally get that. And then as far as the the political career and really being involved with at the township committee level, all the way up to mayor. I have friends that are in politics, and I don't know. It sounds like sometimes just being a part of the committee can be a real challenge because, you're the one that's hearing all of the different things that are going on. You're making the decisions for the town. How did that experience kind of shape you, for what you're doing now? I guess it's just dealing with a lot of different people, I would assume. But can you get into that a little bit? What you took away from that political career?
Sure. And I always say that my time on the township committee and particularly at mayor was the most rewarding experience that I've had working. And, there's a lot of aspects to it. When you're on a committee, of course, you have to be collegial and considerate of other people's opinions. When you want something to happen, you have to get at least two other of your colleagues on a 5-person committee to see it your way. So there's challenges there. But there's also, public-facing challenges. People get excited about and upset about things. And the funny thing is that when people come to a town committee meeting, because almost no one goes to a town committee meeting unless something's going on that affects them. So they show up, they're agitated, usually, because something's going on they're not happy with. They're not used to the process, so they can be a little put off by the formality of a township committee meeting or any public meeting. Yeah. And so the challenge is to just make people feel like they're being heard, help them understand the process, and be clear when you make your decisions, why you're making your decisions. As a politician, you have to say what you're going to do, then you have to do what you're going to say. And if you deviate from that plan, you better have a pretty good reason, and you better express that early and often.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
It was a great experience. Learned all about so many things. Public safety with the police department, public health. We had a grounds crew, road department. We're maintaining roads. We're keeping people safe. We're trying to control taxes, managing debt. And, it was just, and of course, there was the staff. We had a great staff. So it was a really satisfying and rewarding experience. And I learned in that position that you can operate efficiently and deliver better results, that you can manage your debt and pay off your debt and still deliver. Basking Ridge is a pretty premier town.
Yeah, and, absolutely.
People have expectations, and I like to think we met them consistently over the 15 years, and I think they're still doing a great job today.
Yeah, for sure. I just always think it's interesting people's background and how it really affects them. I think I've shared with you before that I dropped out of college to play in a rock band. My father was not too pleased with that decision, but I always say, like, I've had beer bottles and things thrown at me. I've been booed off the stage, and then I've had people try to grab me because they're so enthralled with the music, right? So I've been used to either being totally rejected or people loving me, right? So that's one thing. Learning rejection early was very helpful for me, but I can really imagine that from a political standpoint. You're dealing with, bipartisan issues and people feeling a certain way. You get to learn how to really deal with people in general. And that's really helpful in what you do now, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely. You have to listen to people. And that's absolutely right. Things can get pretty political before election day, but if you've won your election, then you're representing everybody in town, regardless of whether they voted for you or not.
Absolutely.
So when people come up to speak their mind during a public comment period, you have to listen, and it's easy. Listen respectfully, respond, at the right time with what you're thinking about it. And in business, it's the exact same thing. I think a lot of times people that are looking for clients and trying to encourage them to use the service that they have, like ours, I think the natural inclination for a lot of people is to talk about themselves. When really you want to get the person that you're with to try and talk about themselves.
Yep.
I have a friend who makes a joke all the time. He says, enough about me. Now you talk about me. And that's a good one. That's not a winning formula. If we're really going to help people, we have to listen so we can understand if we can help them.
Yeah.
And if we'd be a good fit.
Yeah. Have you ever checked out Chris Voss at all?
Oh, yeah. I listened to Chris Voss. He's very entertaining and informative.
Amazing.
He's amazing. I always think he's the kind of person that if I ever sat face to face with him, I'd be so nervous because I wouldn't know what he was really driving at. And figure like every word you'd be sinking yourself in a deeper hole.
But that's like where I really started to pay attention to listening, really, and really, paying attention to listening skills. I took his master class, and
Really?
they actually have live recordings of hostage negotiations that he was on.
Yeah.
And it's amazing, right? Like, I mean, it's hard to compare, selling investment banking services or selling, cost reduction, services, compared to saving, people's actual lives. But, really learning to listen more than you speak is a key thing that people need to probably focus a lot more time on.
Yeah, that and empathy.
And empathy. Very, very, very true. Very,
Yeah.
very true. So, for the listeners today, the reason why I really wanted to have you on the show was, not just because I think very highly of you, personally and professionally, but, I really want, the listeners, business owners, entrepreneurs, executives, et cetera, to really get a good insight to the costs of running their business. And I think there's a lot of stuff where people just get so focused on the day-to-day operations of their business that they kind of stop thinking about, the other, some of the costs of running their business, right? And it can actually be a cost to their business if they're, spending too much time paying attention to that. And then when they can bring in someone like yourself, could you kind of give us just a macro level, look at the challenges that a lot of companies are facing when it comes to, managing their expenses?
Sure. We always joke in our business that everyone should be looking at their expenses and hiring us to help them. But there are a lot of good reasons. There are a lot of reasons, and some pretty good reasons sometimes from a prospect's perspective. It could range from they're short manpower, so they don't feel they have the time to dedicate to getting us the information we need, and that's incorrect because we take very little time. We just we're a very light touch with our clients. It could be that the company has just gotten rid of their CFO. CFO could have moved on to somewhere else, and they may have an interim. That person typically doesn't want to engage someone like our group. It could be that they have a brand new CFO. Now, sometimes new CFO goes, sure, let's take a look. But quite often they think, well, I've just been hired to do this kind of thing, and I can't turn around and tell my boss that I'm going to hire someone else to do the thing that I think he thinks he's hired me to do. It could be they're being acquired by someone and nothing's going to go on. It could be that they're acquiring another entity and they're just not putting any focus or energy into expense reduction. One of the ones that really, it's sort of a bee in my bonnet, is when people will say, well, we looked at this 2 years ago, so we're good. And frankly, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely.
Things change all the time. Things change with themselves, and things change with their suppliers all the time.
So let me ask you, I mean, if you could, I don't want to, put you on the spot here with like a top 10 list, right? But I mean, when we're talking about expense reductions, I mean, could you kind of give us, maybe just an example of 10 things that somebody could, really look at and probably easily save on that they're not recognizing right now?
Sure. Well, it varies from industry to industry. So, manufacturing, they're not buying medical supplies, and in an office, they're not buying uniforms, things like that. But, we operate in 40 different expense categories across, we're industry agnostic. But, our high running industries, the ones where we are engaged the most and we save the most, are manufacturing, healthcare, higher education, not for profits. Those are areas where where we do the most business, and insurance is one I think that's a high runner. And I think the reason is that who reads their insurance policy, who understands insurance. Well, your broker does. So
Yeah.
it's like an accountant. If you get close to your broker and your broker is delivering you coverage that you're satisfied with, you're loath to take a look somewhere else.
Yeah.
And it could be that your broker's your broker because if you're a nonprofit, they've been a generous sponsor. It could be that it's your brother-in-law or your golf partner or your fraternity brother or someone that you have a personal relationship with, and you're reluctant to interfere with that. But there are a lot of reasons why, but that's a pretty dynamic market. It's complex, and people don't want to move. And when you don't want to consider moving or putting the business out to bid, you're going to pay whatever your broker is putting in front of you. So it's often a high spend, and it's one that people are reluctant for a variety of reasons to look at. Medical supplies is an interesting one. I have a client here in New Jersey. They run a surgical center, and we're able to save them 25% on their medical supplies. And they're so busy doing so many other important things, right? There's the care of the patients, and it's a very complex. It's one of the things that's been really interesting to me is how you learn so much about all these different businesses, and how they operate and what they do. I had no idea that a surgical center was as complex as it is. You might think it's pretty complex because it involves surgery and people's health and well-being. There's much more complex than you can imagine. So
the thing that I got the most out of working with people in the medical space that I've come to realize is it's, and I hate to say this, right? Because treating the patients is obviously the most important thing, but it's so complex in terms of collecting revenue that a lot of people are leaving money on the table there, right? By just not, billing things the right way to insurance companies, all that. And there's such a heavy focus on that, between worrying about bringing the patients in and then collecting your pay for servicing those clients, right? That I think there's probably not enough time in the day for them to focus on, the second half of this, which is, managing their expenses.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right, Mike. It's a complex business. So, I think we were able to save that client 25% of their medical supplies. Freight is another one. Manufacturers, if you're making something, you're shipping it.
Yeah.
And freight is an interesting expense category because it too is a little complex. If a company doesn't have its own fleet, and I don't know, probably most companies don't, they're manufacturing product and they're shipping it out. It has to be picked up at a certain time. If it's going internally, they have a little more flexibility about the time of arrival. But if it's going to a customer, it's got to arrive at a certain location at a certain date and time. There's pressure on loading docks. They have schedules. Everyone can't all show up at 9:00 in the morning, park their truck, and go for coffee while it's unloaded. They're coming in around the clock. And since it's so complex, the rates vary by lane. Each destination is a lane. So if a company has 20 different customers, they have 20 different lanes, 20 different locations, and they have to get the right rate in each one of those. And it's very dynamic. So I think they settle in with someone they're pretty comfortable with, but I don't know that they're necessarily getting the best price. And we find that we can almost always improve significantly on that.
Awesome.
So there's just a few to name.
Yeah, no, for sure. The one thing I guess, that I personally am challenged with, and maybe this would be helpful, to the listeners to hear this. But so, my mindset was always, when it came to insurance, right? Well, I have my insurance with State Farm, or I have my insurance with New Jersey manufacturers, or, another great example I would say is, your cell phone, right? I am a Verizon customer, and I have been since I've had a cell phone. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of people are in the mindset where they think they're with the best provider that's out there, right? Well, you can't get any better insurance than State Farm, or you can't get any better, than New Jersey manufacturers, or you're never going to have better coverage than you would with Verizon. And so can you comment a little bit on, how do we change that mindset, right? Because you don't want to have, bad insurance coverage. You don't want to have these things, but it's like, are we leaving money on the table thinking that we're with the right person, right? I mean, are there other companies out there that are offering really competitive things that we've never heard about, right? But we can feel safe in going with them.
Right. That's a great question, Mike. There's a couple of interesting points to be made in response to it. One is, you may be with the best possible supplier for you. And we always kind of assume that if someone's been with a vendor for a long time, they're happy with the service that they're receiving. And in fact, most of the time, our clients stay with their incumbent supplier, just at a better price. Because if you have a long relationship and you like the service, if they find out you're going out to bid, and we're always respectful by including incumbents, they don't want to go from making 100% of what they've been billing you to zero. If they could reduce price, they'll take 90%.
Yeah.
And so that's a really important point to make. And another point is that our team is really unique. We have people that are specialists in over 40 different categories.
Hmm.
And unlike our customer who might be going out to the market, once a year, once every 2 years, 3 years, we're going out every day. Our
Yeah.
people are in the market every day. They know all the suppliers and they know what people are paying for the services and who delivers and who doesn't.
Yeah.
So when you engage with a company like ours, you're getting the experience of someone that's buying what you're looking to buy every day, and they know the entire market. They have the data, the historic data. Um, that's another benefit. It's
Yeah.
so the chances are, if you're not looking at price all the time, you're paying too much.
Exactly. And then I think the other thing too that I think is very, very helpful is, with ERA and, DBD and what we do is, you know, just because we're dealing with this widget manufacturer in, Bernard's Township, New Jersey, now that we know what a widget manufacturer in Bernard's Township should be paying, then we could probably speak to other widget manufacturers out there, right? And then we can be able to say like,
Sure.
hey, well, this is a good opportunity. You brought up something though that I think comes up in a lot of people's when you're in a sales role. When I was in traditional commercial banking, the big keyword now with banks isn't loans, it's deposits, right? So you'd say, "Hey, John, love for you to bring your deposits over," and you look at me and you go, "Oh my God, man, that is going to be such a pain in the ass to do. Like I did this once before." But I think like people go into it and say, if I'm going to have to change something or if I'm going to have to switch something, it's going to be such a pain in the ass and it's going to actually hurt me worse than I'd rather just pay the extra. But I know you have commented on this, before, but, besides, like you said, being able to negotiate on behalf with the incumbent, which is very helpful, what else is ERA doing to make the process, if switching is going to be a savings, how do you make that easier for clients and how do you get people over that mindset of, oh, this is going to be so difficult?
Oh, that's a great question, and we do have a unique solution to that. I think in our I hate to use the word space, but in our business,
Yeah.
um, we don't just go out and find the best choices for our clients to make. We help them through any implementation that's necessary. So if you're getting new pricing with an existing vendor, we make sure that their online portal has got the new prices loaded for you, and we monitor that. And if you're switching suppliers, say you're switching an insurance company, and that can be pretty onerous. That's the kind of thing that makes
Yeah.
people, sweat a little bit. We work with the insurance broker, insurance company, and our clients team to smooth that transitions because we do that all the time too.
Yeah.
So the reason we're able to do that is that in our business we stay with our clients for a 3-year period after any implementation.
That's
We haven't
awesome.
touched on this before, but ours is a contingency-based business. We look to find clients that have a problem we can solve, and if we can't solve it, we certainly don't want to be paid.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
that's a very rare occurrence, but the majority of the money that we make on an engagement comes through our fees on a monthly basis during that 3-year period, as the savings actually come in.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the one thing that I want people to really take away from this conversation today is, getting on a call with John Carpenter and his team. There's no cost to this, right? So I always call it checking the pulse, right? Like let's just take a quick pulse on like where we're at with things. And, worst thing that could happen is, John says to you, "Hey man, you're doing really good. Like whatever you've been doing with managing your expenses, you've been on point. But hey, please use me as a helpful resource in the future if anything ever comes up." Right? I'm sure you have a lot of that. You have that happen, but there's really no cost to checking the pulse on your expenses. And if you're not, you're probably leaving money on the table.
I think that's true, and resonates with me what you said, Mike. I'd much rather just talk to somebody and
Yeah.
find out pretty quickly. Hey, they're doing it. They're killing it.
Yeah.
I congratulate them on a great job, and we move
Yeah.
on. Or they're just not interested for whatever reason. It's
Yeah. That's my
it's
favorite. That's my was probably one of my favorite things that occurred in my banking career was, and again, I know you and I we're very, very similar in our approach. Is we just like to meet really good people, and if you can say like, "Hey, you're doing really, really well with this," I always feel like people then look at you and go, "So, like, what? You don't want my business?" It's like, no, you're in a good spot. I'm a needs-based salesperson. I'm not trying to
Exactly.
sell you on something. I'm needs-based. But then what usually happens though is that no that you give, it pays forward in the future when all of a sudden they get this like crazy bill from their insurance company, and they're like, "Ah, I remember
Yeah.
that John Carpenter man. He was a really good dude. I'm going to give him a call to help me on this now."
You're absolutely right. In a funny way, nothing feels better than saying, "Hey," I guess it's like the second best feeling in sales when you see
Yeah,
someone and they're doing it, they're killing it, and you just congratulate them and thank them for the chat, and
yeah,
you know,
for sure, for sure.
move on.
So, could you maybe just give a couple of notable projects that you've worked on? I mean, if you can't say any names, completely understood, but would just love to be able to give some notable projects that you've worked on and how that's kind of shaped your perspective, in the industry.
Sure. Well, this recent healthcare project um, has been really interesting to me to see that a really successful business still had an opportunity to save. And it
Yeah,
wasn't because they weren't doing a good job at trying to save, they were just overloaded
yeah,
with everything else that's going on. Think of another project I'm doing work with a not for profit right now. It's especially rewarding because this not for profit helps people, trains them for jobs, people with various disabilities, and it trains them for various jobs that they're well suited for.
yeah.
They found at one point that they couldn't place them, there weren't enough jobs to place them in. So they
Hmm.
started businesses to hire and employ the people that they had just trained, and they've gotten a bunch of contracts for various interesting applications. And I really love being able to help them, especially because I know that every dollar we save them is more money that they can have to train more people and grow their businesses to employ more people. So those
Yeah.
are those are two that really resonate with me.
Very cool. Very cool. So the one thing you said to me the other day when we were talking about something, just in my world in investment banking, and I don't want to say the quote because I'll let you say it because it'll sound better coming from you before I butcher it. But we were just talking about, when a company like, for me, getting involved with a company, 36 months out from an exit can be very helpful, right? It can give us the opportunity. It's always better to meet somebody way before they want to sell than all of a sudden it's like, hey, no, we want
Yeah,
to sell tomorrow. Can
right.
you help us, do this, right? So can you talk a little bit about that? Because, fair market value of a company, comes from, usually it's a multiple of, EBITDA. Can you talk a little bit about that and how, this could be really helpful to a company that's, maybe thinking about a potential exit or some sort of a transaction?
Sure. We like to think we're useful at all stages in the life cycle of a
Of
company,
course.
but when a company is up for sale, everyone wants to get the owner wants to get the highest price,
Yeah.
and the fastest way and most efficient way to improve the price or the value of your business is through savings. It's 100% efficient. Every dollar that you save increases your EBITDA, and the valuation of a company is based on a multiple of EBITDA. So say your multiple is 5 and you want to grow the value of your business by $5 million for sale purposes. Save
Yeah.
$1 million and grow the
Yeah.
value of your company by $5 million.
Yeah.
It's a simple math like that.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, for anybody that's, listen, I think John would be happy to speak to anybody. There's a no cost to getting on a call with John and having the conversation, but just something to really think about. I think that's a really, really, really interesting point to consider if you're thinking about this. So now, at ERA, are you a lone wolf? I mean, essentially on your own. I mean, are you mentoring anybody that's kind of beneath you? I mean, you've had such amazing experiences. I mean, are you part of the leadership at all at the firm?
Well, it's interesting. People often think that Evergroup is this company with
Yeah.
employees, and the fact is, it's a franchise business.
Okay.
I own my franchise here in New Jersey. There are other franchisees around. In fact, I think you mentioned it at once as a boutique
Yes. Yes.
financial company. I think that's a great characterization. I'm glad that you thought of it that way, because we try to deliver that kind of service to our clients. But the fact is, we have 1,000 franchisees around the globe,
Okay.
and there are about 200 of us here in the United States. The interesting part of the model is some of us are out looking for clients. That's what I do. But there's a whole cadre of franchisees who are experts in all these different expense areas. There are people that are expert in fleet management, freight, medical supplies, uniforms, MRO in a factory, all those things. We have people that just do that all day, every day.
Yeah.
And when I sign a client, I partner with those individual experts that are in our network. We're a global network of experts in expense reduction.
Yeah. So now you did say, I feel like you told me this before, but you don't do a lot of work with municipalities.
No, I thought when I first got into it, I thought, oh, this will be great. I know a lot of people involved in municipalities, county government, even some public schools, public entities.
Yeah.
But the fact is, it's difficult to do because for a variety of reasons. One is public bidding rules apply.
Yeah.
And that makes it different for us because we can't say what the value of our engagement is going to be up front. It depends on what we find and what we're able to execute for our clients. The other thing is the decision is inherently committee-based when you're involved with government. I thought I was doing great at this one town, and I found out that everyone in the town committee was at odds with each other. And so if one person had an idea, these two people didn't like it. And if this person had an idea, well, this person was holding a grudge and didn't want to participate. So you need to get 5 or a majority of people to go along with what you propose to do, and it's just not that easy to do. The ideal client is a privately held company because it's just simpler decision making.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So let's get into you a little bit, personally. I mean, are there any things that you're doing, kind of on a daily basis? What is your approach to really be successful in your position? Is there anything that you're doing that's, kind of behind the scenes that nobody really gets to see that's really helping you execute at such a high level?
Yeah, rising early is an important thing, and it's not just rising early and drinking coffee. It's what you do with the time.
Yeah.
So I like to rise early. I like to read.
So what time's rising early?
5:30, 5 o'clock, something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
Listening to podcasts or reading books or listening to audiobooks is something I'll do while I'm engaged in another really important thing for me, which is fitness.
Awesome.
I know that you're the fittest guy I've ever met. But in my own way,
thank you very much. I appreciate that.
I'm a real avid cyclist and hiker, and I've done a lot of cycling. And I love this. This is a great location here. So many great hills to climb and routes to take. There's just something great about being on a road bike at 5:30 in the morning. It's before the traffic, before the heat, and it's I call it cycle therapy because you just get. It's just almost a meditative thing. You'll pop your head up and go, "Wow, how did I get here?" And you're like 5 miles from where you last thought about where you were. It's amazing.
I always enjoyed cycling as a kid, and I say it now. I might have told you this. I hate running, so I started running a half marathon every year now. So I have to train for it.
Right.
But I think you brought up a really good point. For me, when I have to do that long run on a Sunday, whether it be 5 to 12 miles or something, I get such good time to just really break down and work on a problem in my head because I'm just doing that repetitive motion. And I am a little bit of a psychopath. Maybe people think I'm a serial killer. I run to a metronome. So it's tick, 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 tick.
I've never heard of that. Is that a common thing?
I think a lot of people do. So if you you can go on Apple Music and get a playlist. So, 160 beats per minute is going to be, a 9-minute mile or whatever that is. That's how I make sure that I'm pacing myself correctly, right? So you can listen to music, but for me, that tick, 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 tick just kind of gives me that drone thing where I'm not paying attention. Like I'm a music guy. I can't listen to music while I'm working because I'll start listening to the chorus. Yeah. Okay. Those songs. Like I need to listen to something that's very just basic and bland so that I can really get my thought in. So I couldn't agree more. I think that's a really good thing.
Yeah. It's fitness is foundational for success.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. Really is. I mean, and most people don't realize that, but I couldn't agree with you more with the getting up early. The one other thing that I do is, whatever I always promise my wife that I'll never do 2 nights in a row out. But, fortunately and unfortunately, sometimes we have to spend a lot of time out networking and doing this. So I agree with you with the getting up early. I use that as very sacred time. And then usually one night per week, I end up working, late after I get home from an event. Let's say I get home at 9 o'clock, I'll work till midnight. And
Right.
it's this magical time where you get, 3 to 4 hours where you can just completely get something done without the phone ringing, without my daughter wanting me to, come downstairs and play with her and do this. It's like, it's great because it's time that I could just really focus on something. So I couldn't agree more with those points.
Yeah. I love the time when the rest of the world's asleep. It just, you're right. It is
Boom,
magical time.
boom, boom. So, I mean, how are you balancing the demands of your career with your, personal life? Is it the way that you're kind of starting a little bit early, even maybe before the wife, Mrs. Carpenter gets up, you're up doing some of this, doing some of these things, but you brought up, kind of trying to find that balance. How do you find that balance with a busy career in your family life?
Well, I worked a lot of years in the corporate environment, and I started long enough ago that there was not a lot of flexibility about when or where you did that.
Yes.
But I find that this business is just such a natural fit
Yeah.
for my lifestyle because there are parts of it that I have to do during business hours, but there's an incredible amount of flexibility. If
Yeah.
I have things like this weekend's a great example. Saturday I got up, went out for a nice walk, came back after about an hour and a half, and I made a cup of coffee, and I came upstairs to my office,
Yeah.
and you know, just sat down here, got organized over some things I'm working on, put together some talking points for a talk I'm giving, and I got up and just went on to do the next thing. So it
Yeah.
doesn't feel like I'm working for myself. So it
Yeah.
doesn't feel like it's something I have to do. It's something I
Yeah.
like to do. And it's just
Absolutely.
a whole different feel. So I find it very easy to blend this life, this position that I'm doing right now, with my personal life. And the travel
Yeah.
thing is, I was off somewhere down at the beach visiting my son down in Florida, and I knew I had a call at like 12:15 one day, so I just went back to the car, sat in the car, turned the air conditioning on, and took the call
Yeah.
at 12:15. In my flip flops.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so
And
it's
I would say the other cool thing now with our, the thing about our businesses, while they're different, we're still engaging with the same people. The thing that I like most is that, socially, you and I went out to a really nice dinner with
yeah,
our friend Blake. I get that social interaction time with people that I work with also professionally. So it's like it's kind of like a blend of my personal and professional life. Where it's funny. I said to my wife the other day, I said, "You haven't met half of my really close friends," and she goes, "Well, I know all your close friends." I'm like, "No, the people I spend the most time with are the people that I actually do business with now." So she hears me talking about these people as my friends, but they're just they're people that I met through ACG or whatever else it
right.
is, which is very,
Yeah,
very
yeah,
cool.
yeah. Getting out to meet people like that's key. Some people say they like networking and they like to go out and do some networking. I always think of it. I want to go out and become part of someone else's network.
Absolutely,
It's not
absolutely,
about my network. It's
yeah,
about being part of other people's network and being of value to them.
absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, you and I both, believe in that so well. I mean, I just want to be a helpful resource to the world. And the
Yeah,
more of a helpful resource that I am, the more good things kind of come back to me.
yeah.
So,
What's better than connecting two people that really ought to know each other, right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, before we wrap up, I just wanted to, kind of get some closing thoughts for you. What advice would you give for, business owners or executives, when it comes to expense management? I mean, like, what would be the message that you would give to them that for them hopefully to be open to having a conversation about this?
Okay. The first thing is it's way easier than you think. I know it sounds like a chore, maybe to some people, but it's easier than you think. Um, and it's of long term value to your business. It should be, you can make it a long term, ongoing practice in your business. You create a culture of cost savings. Uh, Understand that value isn't always price. In fact, there are always other factors that go into when you make a purchasing decision. And there's a quote one time I read by C.S. Lewis that talked about how the good things we do, I'm going to paraphrase here, the good things we do and the bad things we do compound the same.
Yep.
So, if you're paying an expense, you're paying more than you should in year zero, you're going to pay 10% more than you should, 10% more than that in year one. And if it's another 10% increase, it compounds just like interest on a dollar saved. And if you look at where you'll be at the end of 3 or 5 years, it's not just that you spent more than you should have. It's where you got to compare where you are with where you could have been.
Absolutely.
And that's an enormous difference. So it really should be a fundamental part, I think, of operating a business. And when you can engage with someone like Era Group to take that burden off of your shoulders, there's really no reason not to.
I apologize. I keep saying ERA, but Era Group. I'll make sure that I say that in the future. I just, when it comes to ERA, Era Group, I just think John Carpenter. So that's
wow. Thank you. Yeah. I forgive you, Mike, because the name has changed. It was Expense Reduction Analyst, ERA, but there was a rebranding about 1.5 years, 2 years ago to Era Group.
Okay.
And the company's growing, and there's a lot of new investment in the business. So it's an exciting time.
Very cool. Very cool. So how can listeners best connect with you? Obviously, we'll put your contact information in the show notes and everything, but just to put it out there now, where's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Sure. The simplest way is to use my email address, jcarpenter@eragroup.com, ERAGROUP.com. And I'm on LinkedIn. I'm John Joseph Carpenter on LinkedIn. Easy to find me.
Very cool. Very cool. So before we wrap up, we like to do this with all of our guests. It's the $1 million question. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. So when you look back on your journey, whether it be personally or professionally, what's one moment that felt really small at the time, but ended up changing everything?
Well, I think I touched on it earlier. That was when I went to college and picked up my schedule from my first semester of college and saw that I was going to take a computer science course, a programming course, because I got that degree. I went and got my first job, like a week after I graduated from Union College. I showed up at AT&T down in Piscataway, and I was being walked back to my desk. It was a big building. And they said, "Oh, wait a minute, your team is meeting in this conference room." And I walked in that conference room, and that's where I met my wife.
Really?
I hadn't even sat down. My wife, Lauren, and I met at AT&T, and we were married a few years later. We have 3 amazing children. We have 4 grandchildren. Lauren has been the most incredible spouse that a man could have. She's extremely supportive, intelligent, funny, and she's encouraging. Every good thing in my life, stems from taking that Fortran programming course as a freshman in college when I had no idea what I was doing.
That's crazy.
It's just a cascade of events through history, through the years. She encouraged me to get involved with aviation. She encouraged me to get involved in politics. She supported me through all of those things. And she even supported some of my extravagant cycling travel to Italy.
Very cool. Very cool. So let me ask you, who made the first move?
Well, that's a good story. It was me, and I'll just say she was a little hard to get, but
they always are, man. The best ones always are.
Yeah.
Well, John, it was awesome connecting with you. I strongly advocate for any listeners out there that, really just check the pulse, man. Just check the pulse. And like John said, to check it regularly, because you never know. And the compounding effect of not checking the pulse could be really detrimental to your business. So, John, thank you for being on the show. And I will look forward to seeing you soon, Mr. John Carpenter.
Michael, it's been a real pleasure. And I wish you continued success with this great podcast you have.
Thank you, my friend.